Yay! Vermicomposting. Keeping some worm bins. Okay, I'm going to do this in a reverse way than is normally done. Most people make a video about making the bed and they never show you the harvesting. But since it's time to make new beds for my worms, plus I'm downsizing, I only want to go down. I have 3 bins now. I want to go down to 2. I had 4. So yeah, I want to condense them down so it's time to do the sifting and the sorting. But I also did a bit of an experiment where I let it go a lot longer than I normally do because I kind of wanted to see what happened. I'm pretty good about tending my worms on a daily basis because I just like checking them out. Yeah, I let them go. I gave them some food to keep them from coming out the bottom area because this is a double bucketed setup. And if you can see up here in the corner, I've got some little dudes, here they are, that I pulled out from the double layer. I gave a little cocoa coir to play in while I fetch some of the others out. But yeah, I'll be tossing them in there and then moving them accordingly. Can you see them there? If you can see them. Anyways, they'll be boogieing around. So this is basically just a double Lowe's bucket setup. This is a top, obviously cut the top out. I have it lined underneath with a piece of just flat, really well washed cotton sheet that I got for $1 at the Goodwill. I've tried lots of fabrics under my lids, and this is by far the absolute positively most successful. I think part of it is because there's nothing for them to grab onto because it's so smooth, plus because it's old and really washed well and really worn. It's really absorbent, and I don't think that feels good on their bodies, so they tend not to be on the top lid anywhere when I pop it open to check them out. Breathing hole, obviously smaller breathing holes, but let's see what's going on in this bin. Let's pop this bad boy open and see what kind of hummus they've made for us. They've been in here probably about 4, oh holy cow, probably about 4 months. Holy cow, check all that out. Look at all that. See how deep down that is? It's sloped up a little bit here, but that's partially because I just tipped it a little bit when I was scooping the worms off the bottom. Holy macaroni, Batman. Look at this hummus. This is gorgeous. Wow. So the problem with doing it this way is I normally, oh, it's so loamy. I normally bury a half of a banana in the hummus before I sift, which I did not do that this time. So collecting all the worms is going to be a bit of a problem. Well, not necessarily, because like I said, I'm downsizing and I've already chucked a bunch in the forest. So I could just add them. That's a good one right there. Check him out. He's mad. Oh, look, there's a baby hitchhiker. Well, he's not a baby. He's a juvenile, this little guy here. Oh, am I too high? Can you see it? So you are going to lose worms in the process of sifting. That's just a given. You're going to lose a great deal of cocoons, but that's okay because they are prolific breeders. Wow, this stuff is just hummus all the way down. Oh, there's their chunk of charcoal. I put a chunk of charcoal in every bin because there's nothing like biochar. I can use this. I can put this in a terrarium. I can do all kinds of stuff with it because right now this has been in here for about 3 months. It's pretty active in microbiology. So we're going to put that in our little bucket up here. We'll let it keep those guys company while we dig around here and see what's going on. What's that? Avocado peel. See, we've got some small detritus left, some straw, and that's kind of what the sifting does. It doesn't hurt your garden or whatever you're using it for. I'm assuming you're going to be using it for planting because that's what everybody uses castings for. Yeah, it's really thick at the bottom. Wow. Definitely time to sift. I've probably lost a lot of worms out the holes on the bottom, and then they hang out in the leachate. But this is going to be a real pain to sift. Like I said, normally if you bury half of a banana in your hummus and you wait about a week, you do it about a week before you know you're going to sift. And they love bananas. They absolutely absolutely love bananas. And I think that's because of the methane gas that the bananas put out. So they go in and they eat all the banana meat, and they fill up the banana skin like they were a big worm banana, and it's as gross as it is cool. So since I didn't do that this time, I'm trying to find a pocket of them. They usually will have one pocket that will congregate, not only to stay warm, but because they have found a food source. Because that is the one thing that a lot of people don't realize about worms, is they're not like other animals in the sense that they are on the hunt for a mate. They're not. They're absolutely not. They're on the hunt for food. That's all they want. They just want food. And when they run into each other, which is the point of feeding them, they run into each other and then they rub bodies together and they're like, hey, whoa, that feels pretty good. We should make some babies. And they do. And that's what happens. That's, this little guy's not cruising through the forest looking for a girlfriend. He's not. He's just not. Maybe you can see he's a little dirty. Hoping I can get him a little cleaned off here. But these are red wigglers. And they have a little, see if I can get it up in here. They have, I think I'm doing a bad job of showing you guys, because I'm not paying attention to my camera. I'm sorry, this is my first worm video. But they have a little band on their body. Whoops, let's put him back in there. Where is it? It's right there. You can, I don't know if you can see it, but it's right up in here. And it's a little band that makes around his body that the babies don't have. But when they become of mature breeding age, they grow that band. And when they rub against each other when they're eating, that's why eating is really important. You want them all to congregate together. You want them to rub bodies and figure out that it feels good and then make more. That's how you breed worms. You give them a good environment to live in, plenty of food to eat, in the same spot. They all come together. They have a party. These little bands, if you open your lid sometimes in the morning, you'll see them all up along the edge of the bucket or the bin or whatever it is you're using. And they'll be seemingly stuck together in clumps sometimes. And that little band on their body right there, that is exactly, can I get a better look up in there? Let's see if I can get a better look. Is exactly where they are stuck together. They are stuck together. They are. That's how they breed. They rub together. Those little bands get like a sticky substance, and they literally glue themselves onto another worm temporarily, where they exchange fertilization and they make cocoons. And it is on that same band. Wah! Get down, buddy. He's a good one. You like him lively. It is that same band that, oh wait, let's put him in our jar. Where the cocoons actually grow on their bodies. And they hang out there. Let's bring this over a little. They hang out there on that little band until it's time to let go. And then a worm who has a cocoon will scoot along and drag himself through something that will actually wipe the cocoon off and leave it in the dirt. And then he'll cruise off and go find food and do all that stuff while the cocoon stays behind and grows and hatches. Let's see. I'm not finding a big giant pocket in here of them, which makes me sad because it's just going to make it harder to pull them out. But when they do get cocoons on their little bodies, they usually will produce 2 to 3 cocoons when they're breeding. 2 to 3 cocoons per week on that little band of theirs in their body. And there's an average of about 3 worms per cocoon that they hatch. So you're looking at about 10 baby worms a week if you've got a nice healthy bin and they're happily fed and happily kept. Now the cocoons, they take up to 11 weeks to hatch. So if you're doing your math on that, it's not too terribly, because the whole time you're waiting for those babies to hatch, they're working. They're working and they're producing you this beautiful loamy material. And the average worm, on average, he's about mature at about 3 months of age. So after 11 weeks, when he hatches, 3 months after that, he's going to be producing, you know, a bunch of cocoons every week and, you know, 10, 11, 12 babies. Now, I know you've probably read plenty of things that talk about how there's 20 worms in a cocoon, or excuse me, an egg, cocoon, yeah, blah. And it's just not true. It's not true. Maybe somewhere in the world, those kind of miraculous births happen, but they're not happening in my bin. They're not happening in any worms bin of anybody I've ever talked to or met or dealt with. It's always these ambiguous articles that talk about, you know, they just know. And I've just discovered there's so much untrue that I'm reading out there. But yeah, that's okay, because when they're producing that many cocoons in a week, it doesn't matter that there's only 3 babies in each cocoon, because that 3 is going to start producing in 3 months, and so on and so on. And then you end up with these, well, I had 4 bins. And like I said, I'm downsizing, but I'm totally confident in being able to up my colony if ever I need to increase them. I just don't personally have a need for this much castings. I keep 1 bin. Let me reach over here and grab it. Wow. This little bin right here, I keep full of castings. I got holes in the top so it can air out and dry out. Most bugs, like up here in Washington State, we have a problem with fungus gnats in our plants. And they don't like worm castings. They just don't like them. So I'm not worried about them laying eggs or anything in there. But that's all it is. That's about how much I keep, and that'll last me for an entire cycle in my bin until I harvest more. And then I'll just have more. So I'm not going to make you sit through the entirety of my sifting. I'm going to look here real quick, because not only is the castings beautiful, but I'm also looking for other pest critters that might give me indications that the environment in my bin is not a happy one for my worms. Worms prefer a more alkaline environment, meaning less acidity. They don't like it sour and soggy and wet. They don't like high acid. They like it a little more earthy, a little more salty, a little more dry. Now, I'm not saying put salt in there. These guys have mucous membrane bodies, you know. That's another reason why you don't put citrus in your vermicomposter. Now, I understand in some parts of the world, like in the Mediterranean countries and whatnot, that has a great deal of citruses in their diets and just provide it. And if that's what your organic matter is for your little dudes, and that's what it is. They're going to break it down. They will break it down. They break everything down. It's just, you have to understand that their little bodies, not only do they breathe through this skin, but you can see these little shiny little, we've all seen worms. Their bodies are mucous membranes, and it's mucous membranes that lines the inside of your nose. So imagine, you know, when you're peeling an orange and you get that orange oil on your fingers, if you were to jam your finger up your nose, how do you think that would feel? The truth is, that's what it feels like on their entire body. This is why you don't want to give them citruses or things like raw onions or raw garlic, things that will burn them, because they will actually get blisters on their body, and it's horrible, I'm telling you. I know you're all just a worm, whatever. It's a living creature, okay? I'm not going to intentionally inflict any more harm because it's more convenient for me if I know better. And that's just the truth of it. So this guy's a little lazy. He's kind of checking it out. He's mature. He's grown. He's about a full-size red wiggler. That's all I've got in my bin are red wigglers. They're pretty groovy little dudes. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm not seeing any problem pests like mites, either red or white, which are good indications of problem circumstances in the bin. I'm not seeing any isopods. I'm not seeing any fungus. And fungus isn't always bad. Just so you know, mycelium is your friend, and it's their friend, but it also is an indication of certain circumstances that would allow it to flourish and grow in your bin. But it looks good. It looks good. It looks like all we have to do now is sift, and I'm going to, I think, start that process. And I'm not going to make you sit and watch me sift the whole thing. I'll show you a little bit how I do it, and what's easiest for me. while I probably just chitter chatter on about worms. Yeah, let's move this guy out of the way. Let's get that bin out. We're just going to move him to this side of the camera, I think. We're going to get our sifting bin, which is a big 18-gallon tote. This is my sifting pan, which is actually a sweater drawer out of an Alcott closet organizer, which was weird because I'd gone to Office Depot and I've got some of those smaller bins that had this metal meshy stuff. I've tried making my own sifters. I've gone through it all. And I was looking online one day and I saw one of these. Now, the closet set's like $2,200, the closet organizer that comes with drawers and whatnot. But these drawers themselves, this exact size and everything, is $8. However, I couldn't figure out how to order just the bin without ordering the whole closet organizer, which wasn't going to happen. And within 3 days of that, I happened to be taking my garbage out. I live in an apartment, so I'm in a complex. And lo and behold, there was a perfectly brand new, clear 18-gallon bin. Not this one, it's a different one. I have in my car. And this tray. In fact, there were 2 of these. There were 2 of those. What do you think of that? That's pretty awesome, huh? So, my gloves on, just because the rubber gloves, they'll get tore. I'm going to tape my thumb up because I rub my thumb a lot while I'm sifting on the bottom, and it gets my thumb knuckle pretty raw. So we're going to tape that up. And just so you know, the whole reason why I am actually wearing blue rubber gloves, there's a lot of reasons. One, I already kind of sort of talked about the fact that worms have mucous membrane bodies. I have oil on my hands. I have detritus. Even if I washed my hands, there's soap. You hear what I'm saying? There's stuff that I could get on them. But more than that, there is nothing more disgusting than sticking your hand into your worm bin and feeling your fingernails cut worms in half. It's horrible. And what's even worse than that is when you're digging around in your bin later and you see a little fraction of a worm who used to be whole, and you cut him in half, but he's still just cruising around in your bin. It's pretty wild. So, it's a pretty gentle process that I go through. It's one reason why I have this bucket sitting up here. This extra little thing here was just so you guys could see some of the worms kind of cruising around in there, but we're going to actually toss them in our bigger bin, because if we look over here real quick, I've actually already cleaned out one of my bins. So these are the extra guys. Sorry, my lighting is probably terrible. That they've been waiting for me to finish these other 2 bins so they could all be put into brand new fresh bedding all together. So got some wood chips on top. We'll let them get in there and boogie around. So whichever ones I find will be getting tossed in there. So I'm going to start here with a little bit. We just get some handfuls of our nice loamy earth. And the thing is, this stuff is really fine. It's really, really fine. It's really fine. It goes through no problem. But you can kind of see how many worms I've got in there. Now, when you see me pushing, I'm not actually pushing through. I've got a little bit of pressure. But what I'm actually doing is I'm rolling it. I'm rolling it and allowing it to fall through so I can roll the dirt off my worms and see them a little better for retrieval. Now, they are escape artists, and if you give them an opportunity, they absolutely will take off on you. That's okay. If they fall through into my compost, big ones you can retrieve, little ones you can't really do anything about. But, they're just part of the ecosystem at that point. Either they're going to continue to feed and thrive in there, and when you go dig your castings out later, you're going to have some worms going, hey, what's up? Or they're going to die and wither and become part of the compost. And you kind of see how I'm cleaning them off a little bit here. That's just basically what I do. roll them around, get them exposed, keep them a little disoriented so they don't find those holes that they're being rolled around on and try to make an escape. This is absolutely not my favorite way to do this. Absolutely not. The banana method is my favorite. And just because I end up retrieving and saving a whole lot more worms. But they will all become part of the ecosystem on the outside. You can see how they're kind of getting cleaned up there. Now, when you're picking them out, I'm going to pick some out here, toss them in my bin. It's okay if you bring a little bit of your old worm castings into your fresh bedding, and that's like with any living thing. It likes familiar surroundings. So if you put it in a bed of totally brand new stuff, is it going to do its thing? Yes, of course it is. However, if you want to speed that process up and just make it a little more comfortable for the critter, toss some of his stuff back in there with it. That way he knows this is my earth, this is my bin, this is my bucket, this is where I live, and this is where I'm going to do my job. But you can see how many I'm getting out of here. So I am going to stop the video here. And going to, I think, cut into, I'm going to get some more of this done. And I'm going to get ready to set up a new bin with some fresh bedding. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, just real quick, something else you should probably know about worms is they are self-regulating, meaning that they will keep their colony at a healthy size to where everybody has enough space and everybody has enough food. So if you go long periods of time without actually providing your worms with some nutrition, then yeah, they're going to die off and they're going to leave, or try to anyway. And that's just how it is, because like I said, they're driven by food, not by anything else, food. So we're going to move this over to the side a little bit so you can take a good look here at our, look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. Perfectly sifted, and it smells so rich. It smells like the forest floor. That is, I couldn't get any more perfect. And I didn't actually see any cocoons. So I'm going to go through my 2 bins and do this. And then we'll see you on the bin setup. Yeah! Vermicomposting! Woo!